Tonight on Reporting Scotland, the US Vice President JD Vance touches down in Scotland. He's landed in Prestwick for a holiday in Ayrshire, where the Vance family are said to have their roots.
As soon as folks say, oh, you're Vance, are you related to the Vice President? I say, not as far as I know.
Also on tonight's programme.
Next time, I lay you bets at least 15 or 20 SNP seats and getting on for 1 million votes from our people here in our own country of Scotland.
The former presiding officer and SNP politician Sir George Reid has died at the age of 86. The Sheku Bayo inquiry could face court action after its chair refuses to step down in a row with police.
And coming up in the sport, we'll hear from Dundee United and Hibs as they both look to jump the next hurdle in their quest for Conference League football.
Hello, I'm Laura Miller. Welcome to Wednesday's programme. It's just over 2 weeks since his boss was here. Now, the US Vice President JD Vance has arrived in Scotland for a family holiday, touching down at Prestwick Airport within the last few minutes. The security operation isn't quite on the same scale as the one rolled out for Donald Trump's visit, but it still requires a significant policing effort. Mr Vance, who's already spent a few days in the Cotswolds, has previously referred to himself as a Scots-Irish hillbilly at heart. Here's our Home Affairs correspondent, David Cowan.
For many Americans, a trip to Scotland means a search for their family roots. The man who's a heartbeat away from the White House might be able to trace his back to this ruined mansion in Wigtownshire. Built 4 years before the American Declaration of Independence, it was once owned by members of the Vance family, and there are plenty of people with that name in the local area.
He has got a quite distinct, they've been remarking about his eye colour. There are quite a few Vances round here that have that prominent blue colour in their eyes. It seems to pass down the generations. So when I look at him sometimes I think, maybe you are related to us, but I hope you're not.
The man who's gone fishing with the Foreign Secretary describes himself as a Scots-Irish hillbilly at heart. The Vance Family Association says his links to Ireland are clear, his links to Scotland are not. The association's research has thrown up another tantalising possibility about JD Vance's origin story. If his ancestors weren't from round here, they could have been from another part of the family which owned an estate in Aberdeenshire. Guess where? Centuries ago, they did indeed own land at Menny, where the Vice President's boss has a golf course. It's not known yet whether JD Vance is related to that particular branch of the family tree. The Vice President will stay at a plush country estate near Kilmarnock, once rented out by Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie, and only a short drive from Trump Turnberry. Just as it was for the President, security will be about as tight as it gets.
The motorcade is 19 vehicles. Security in the Cotswolds was somewhere between £2 and £3 million a day. And it's all to protect not just the individuals who occupy the office, in this case Vice President of the United States, but also the stature. We can protect this man just as we can protect America, just as we can protect the West.
Donald Trump met John Swinney when he was here, but earlier this year JD Vance was at loggerheads with Scottish ministers when he said this about people who live within buffer zones around abortion clinics.
Just a few months ago, the Scottish Government began distributing letters to citizens whose houses lay within so-called safe access zones, warning them that even private prayer within their own homes may amount to breaking the law.
Not true, said the Scottish Government. This afternoon, the Vice President met American servicemen and women at an RAF base in the south of England. The Scottish Greens have called him a far-right extremist and say the bill for policing his Scottish visit should be sent to the White House. But, just like Donald Trump, he'll have supporters here too.
Well, Dave is at Prestwick Airport for us this evening. Dave, he's just touched down, but do we know much about what the Vice President is going to be doing while he's here?
Well, the short answer to that is no, we don't. He is here in the UK on holiday, but he has managed to squeeze in a vacation meeting with the Foreign Secretary David Lammy and others, and he also had that visit today to the RAF base. There's no word yet from the Scottish Government whether any of its ministers are going to meet him while he's here. Clearly a visit like this will have a big impact on the local area. Down in the Cotswolds, some locals were very unhappy about the disruption caused by the vice presidential motorcade. Others said though that he should be welcomed to the area because he is the vice president. As for the security operation, when Donald Trump was here, over 7,000 police officers were involved, were on duty over those 4 days protecting him. This time round it won't be anywhere near that size. I've heard 1,500 police officers being mentioned, but it will still be a major undertaking, and as yet we don't know who's going to foot the bill.
OK, Dave at Prestwick Airport, thank you. The former Scottish Parliament presiding officer, Sir George Reid, has died at the age of 86. He'd already had a long career as a prominent journalist and SNP politician before taking on the role in 2003. Paying tribute to him, the First Minister said his passion for Scotland and his empathy for the plight of people everywhere made him a voice that could not be ignored across 5 decades. Our political correspondent Kirsten Campbell looks back at his life.
Scotland's oil is now worth a minimum of £150,000 million. What are we Scots going to get from it without self-government?
In the 1970s, it was George Reid who was the voice of one of the SNP's most famous campaigns.
In the SNP, we know we could create a get-up-and-go society in Scotland. Instead, the dole queues lengthen.
And I hereby declare that George Newlands Reid is elected as the member for this constituency.
He became the MP for Clackmannan and East Stirlingshire in 1974. One of 11 nationalists returned to Westminster.
Next time, I lay you bets at least 15 or 20 SNP seats and getting on for 1 million votes from our people here in our own country of Scotland.
Celebrations then, but the bet was lost as the SNP advance faltered. After losing his seat, he returned to broadcasting.
Election 83, 10:40 tonight.
Later, he worked for the International Red Cross, where he honed his communication skills.
For about 2 weeks, I've been saying cash, cash, cash.
When the Scottish Parliament reconvened, George Reid was among those elected. His expertise in diplomacy was often called upon to welcome visitors.
I'm desperately saddened to hear of the death of George Reid. He has been a towering figure in Scottish politics for 5 decades, an incredibly distinguished presiding officer. George has been an individual of incredible significance in Scotland.
It's important too because we've done it ahead of schedule.
He became the Scottish Parliament's second presiding officer, taking on responsibility for sorting out all the construction controversies with its new home at Holyrood.
He was telling everyone this building will open on a certain date for Her Majesty the Queen. I will brook no departure from that whatsoever. And they said, well, there's a bit of a problem, presiding officer, the flying buttress that is hanging out over the cannon gate. There's a problem with that. And George said, cut it off. They said, sorry, presiding officer, cut the thing off. If it's causing a problem, cut it off. Nothing, but nothing will stop this building being ready for Her Majesty the Queen. I think they got the message.
The Right Honourable Sir George Reid, for services to Scottish politics and to public life.
He was rewarded with a knighthood and later the Order of the Thistle. George Reid had a long and distinguished career, an intellectual with a twinkle in his eye who was very highly respected.
Sir George Reid, the former presiding officer of the Scottish Parliament, who's died at the age of 86. The organisation representing rank-and-file police officers says it is considering launching legal action to remove the chair of the inquiry into the death of Sheku Bayo in custody. The 31-year-old died in 2015 after being restrained by 6 police officers in Fife. The Scottish Police Federation had called for the chair of the inquiry to step down after raising concerns about his private meetings with the Bayo family, but he has refused. Hope Webb has the story.
31-year-old Sheku Bayo died in May 2015 after being restrained by 6 police officers in Kirkcaldy. Since 2020, an inquiry has been aiming to establish what happened on that day and how it was investigated and handled by authorities. But in April, calls were made for the chair of the inquiry, Lord Brackadale, to step down. It was after the Scottish Police Federation raised concerns about meetings he'd held with Sheku Bayo's family. But today he announced he will not step down.
The Chair, Lord Brackadale, has done nothing wrong. He is a judge with over 50 years legal experience, respected for his impartiality and integrity. It comes as no surprise that both the Police Federation and Solicitor General failed to grasp that the inquiry's duty under the Human Rights Act is to conduct a thorough investigation into the death of Sheku Bayo, having at its inquiry's heart the Bayo family.
Now the SPF has said it is actively considering a judicial review that would allow them to take it through the civil courts. The body has 3 months to make a decision.
We'll only bring a judicial review if it's well founded. The same arguments exist that existed previously. The test is, would an independent, well-informed observer think in the circumstances there was apparent bias? And our view is that is the case.
The Scottish Government has responded to Lord Brackadale's decision today, saying it hopes all parties involved can progress the important work of the inquiry as soon as possible. The inquiry is at a crucial juncture. It has completed the process of gathering evidence and is due to hear closing submissions in the near future. Hope Webb, reporting Scotland.
An arts venue in Edinburgh has called their decision to host an event featuring the Deputy First Minister Kate Forbes an oversight. In a statement, Summerhall said their primary concern was the safety and well-being of artists and performers. It's understood there was disquiet about Miss Forbes' appearance because of her views on issues such as gender. Well, our correspondent David Wallace-Lockhart has been following this story. David, what's going on here then?
So last week, Kate Forbes did an event with the Herald. It was an interview in front of a live audience as part of the Edinburgh Festival Fringe. It was at Summerhall, which is a venue in Edinburgh with theatre space and studio spaces that artists use. And my understanding is that there was a backlash amongst the artist community there, that Kate Forbes had been doing an event in their venue because of her views on gender. She voted against SNP plans to make it easier for someone to change their gender. She has expressed socially conservative views in other areas too. Now, this was first reported in the Daily Mail, but Summerhall has released a statement saying they didn't know who the politicians at the event were going to be. They're going to look into how this oversight, as they called it, happened, and that their main concern is the safety and well-being of artists and the people they work with. Now, Kate Forbes has said that attempts to cancel people, as she puts it, undermine democracy, and we've also heard from Shona Robison, her cabinet colleague, who's also hit out at Summerhall.
I don't agree with that. I think Kate Forbes is the Deputy First Minister. I also think that she should be able to go to venues and give her views, and I don't agree. I think that is a decision that is unwise and unnecessary.
And David, despite these proposed gender reforms never actually passing into law, there was lots of debate about it at the time, and despite recent developments, this is a reminder that this issue is still a very live one.
Yeah, it's not a live political issue in a legislative sense, but it is in a public sense still a big controversial topic, gender. And we've ended up in a situation here where a venue that receives quite a lot of public money is saying that the Deputy First Minister's views which are shared by many people in Scotland, aren't views that should be expressed within their venue. Now, Kate Forbes seems to have concern about what this all means for free speech. But as I understand it, Summerhall's stance is really they wouldn't host an event like this with her again in the future.
OK, thank you, David. Well, meanwhile, the National Library of Scotland has been accused of censorship by excluding a feminist book from its centenary exhibition. The editors of The Women Who Wouldn't Wheesht say the collection of gender-critical essays received enough nominations from the public to be part of the display, but was dropped after some staff claimed it could cause harm.
To find a National Library allowing its staff to call our book terrible things, sort of compare us with the worst prejudices, to say that the book is hurtful or worse than that, harmful, seriously harmful to staff, I think they say at one point. It's outrageous that the National Library, its management, didn't push back against that, didn't stand up for our freedom of speech.
Well, the National Library of Scotland said it had concerns about the potential impact of the book on key stakeholders and the reputation of the library. It said the book was still available to read at the library, along with other titles which were not selected for display, and that a full list of those publications is available as part of the exhibition. Now to some significant numbers about Scotland's public finances. The Government Expenditure and Revenue, or GERS figures, were released today. These look at tax and spending here. So let's bring in our business and economy editor, Douglas Fraser. OK, Douglas, what did we learn today then?
Well, we've learned that a lot less money is raised in taxation from Scots than is spent in Scotland or on behalf of Scots. If you take all the levels of government, Westminster, Holyrood and the councils, and that gap is getting wider. There are a lot of numbers here. Here are a few of them. If you take all the money that comes from taxation, income tax, VAT, alcohol and petrol tax, buying a home, £91 billion in total in Scotland, including a lot of the UK's oil and gas tax revenue. How much is spent in Scotland on all these layers of government? Well, that's £117 billion. The difference between the two, £26.5 billion. That's a sort of notional deficit if you imagine Scotland had standalone public finances last year. For comparison, as a share of the total output from the economy, that's nearly 12%. It's more than double the share for the UK, the deficit for the UK as a whole. To bring that down to real numbers for real people, the amount of spending per Scot, that came to more than £21,000, but the amount raised in taxation, well, that's less than £17,000. The difference is paid for by borrowing, redistribution across the UK, coming out of the more prosperous parts, London and the South East. And it's not just Scotland that gains from that, so does every other nation and region within the UK.
And Douglas, we get these figures every year, but essentially why do they matter?
Well, if you assume Scotland stays within the United Kingdom and the Treasury continues to distribute money in this way, they don't matter much. There's a bit of concern about income tax falling behind despite that. But where it matters is the debate about independence. These figures either show the benefits of sharing money around the UK, or that Scotland ought to be doing better and the powers of independence could make that happen. We already know that debate is to be a large part of the SNP's chosen ground for the Holyrood campaign for next May. These numbers are going to be cropping up again during that debate.
I'm sure they will. OK, thank you very much, Douglas. To some of the day's other stories now. And a man who tried to murder a toddler by stepping in front of a moving train has been jailed for 10 years. Frederick Dankua and the 2-year-old boy were struck by the train at Garrahill railway station in the east end of Glasgow in July 2023 after Dankua split from his partner. The child suffered minor injuries and has since fully recovered. And Dundee University has published its response to a damning report which investigated the causes of its financial collapse, prompting a £22 million government bailout. The institution's interim principal has said the document showed there had been clear failings in financial monitoring, leadership and governance. It's proposing a series of actions designed to ensure the university has a sustainable future. Now, from violence to vandalism, anti-social behaviour on Scotland's buses has prompted calls for sanctions against free pass holders. The proposals include suspending passes of repeat offenders or even banning them from buses permanently. Maura Kinneborough reports.
Trouble on Scotland's buses. This passenger takes the emergency hammer to cause hundreds of pounds worth of damage. He slashes seats and seat belts. The impact on other passengers and drivers can be really serious.
The guy got jumped on the bus. He didn't die, but he was flashed a knife and he was beaten like really bad.
There's actually people fighting each other. I'm just trying to get home, and these people are drunk and probably high as well.
Me and my friend went on the bus and she just said out loud, "Where should we sit?" And a random stranger gestured to his lap and he's like, "You can sit here."
Is that on the floor or on the seat?
Staff have to cope with all kinds of problems, some antisocial. In the Lothians, they're recording over 100 antisocial incidents a month, at times almost 300 a month. A tiny fraction given the millions of passengers travelling, but they want the powers to be able to suspend free bus travel passes for repeat offenders.
It is a serious issue. I think it's important to stress it's very much a minority of people that are involved in this. And I think actually it would be very rare then that someone might potentially have their pass suspended. But I think for those instances where something really serious, distressing has happened, that it is important that we take action.
Transport Scotland has said detailed work's begun on suspending use of concessionary travel cards on a temporary and potentially permanent basis as a result of antisocial behaviour. Future legislation may be needed. A behaviour code is being considered. These Young Scot passengers offer differing options for suitable sanctions.
When it comes to like taking their bus passes, it should be like 3 times warning, not just taking it off them.
Fine should be a stage within the final withdrawal.
Even if it's just a restriction for, say, 6 months, they get warnings, and if their behaviour does improve, they can get it back.
Companies say they're working with the authorities and communities to tackle antisocial behaviour and improve safety for all bus passengers and staff. Morag Kinnaborough, reporting Scotland.
OK, time for tonight's sport now with Paul. Where are we starting this evening then?
Well, it's all football tonight. Rangers progressed to the next stage of the Champions League qualifying last night. Hibernian and Dundee United are in action tomorrow in the Conference League. Can they join Rangers in the next round of European competition? Hello there, we're edging closer to a huge night in the quest to reach the Conference League for 2 Scottish clubs. With Jim Goodwin's Dundee United and David Gray's Hibernian both desperate to finish the job in the 3rd qualifying round after encouraging first leg results. Dundee United host Rapid Vienna at Tannadice tomorrow, with the tie poised at 2-2 after an action-packed match in Austria. Max Waters and Zach Sapsford twice hauled the Tangerines level. Head coach Goodwin admits Rapid are the favourites in many people's eyes, but he's sure United have what it takes to reach the playoff round.
It's going to take the same level of commitment, the same level of effort from the players, which won't be an issue. The guys are really excited and obviously played a lot of football at this early stage of the season, but you know, fatigue doesn't come into it. You know, the adrenaline for an occasion like tomorrow night will drive the players on, and hopefully, you know, we'll have a really memorable evening to look back on.
As for Hibs, they're in a more comfortable position after their first leg against Partizan Belgrade, bringing a 2-0 lead back to Easter Road for a match that you can watch live on BBC Scotland. So David Gray's side are back in Leith, where they drew 2-2 with Kilmarnock on Sunday. Rocky Bashiri and Ellie Yuan had Hibs in control, but they couldn't hold on to take all 3 points. Gray says they must have the mindset of winning the second leg against Partizan and maintain their levels of intensity.
If you go and score the next goal, it's about how you then react after that as well. You can't then take your foot off the gas with the threat that they've got. And the flip side to that is if you concede a goal, if it's early in the game, you've still got a lot of football still to be played. There's a lot of football in this tie regardless because of the quality of opposition we're playing against, the threat they've got. You've seen them, they went and scored 7 goals on Sunday night with rotating their squad. So whatever 11 they put out, it'll be a very good side.
So that's the Conference League, but in the Champions League, both Celtic and Rangers now know who they'll face in the playoff round as they seek to make the league phase of that competition. Celtic host Kairat Almaty of Kazakhstan in the first leg a week today. Rangers are also at home first in their tie against Club Brugge. Lyle Cameron scored in Rangers' 4-2 aggregate win over Victoria Pilsen last night and insists his team can now get past the Belgians.
Definitely, I think obviously we know it's not going to be an easy game. They're a good side. We know that. We played them in a friendly at Ibrox a couple of months ago, so we know they're a good team. But that's just what you have to expect to play in the Champions League. I think obviously we need to show that we can compete at that level, and hopefully we will.
Hearts head coach Derek McInnes says his team are not setting themselves up for a fall by voicing their intent to win a trophy this season. The Tynecastle club visit St Mirren on Saturday in the last 16 of the League Cup and have recalled right-back Adam Forrester from his loan at St Johnstone following a thigh injury to defender Christian Borchgrevink, who could be out for 6 to 8 weeks. Hearts are going for 7 straight wins.
Really a huge part, a fundamental part of signing for a club like Hearts should be that you want to be successful and live silverware. So, and that's what we all want. You know, I'm wanting that for me and my staff, and players want that equally. So, you know, there's nothing wrong with saying that. I don't think that you're setting yourself up for a fall. If we don't win the cup, it doesn't mean to say we were wrong to say it, but we do believe that we're good enough to go the full way, and there's no point in believing otherwise.
The former Scotland striker Stephen Naismith is returning to the national team setup for his second stint as an assistant coach to Steve Clarke. Naismith has been out of football since leaving Hearts 11 months ago. He previously helped coach Scotland before moving to Tynecastle and will return to the dugout for the first World Cup qualifier in Denmark next month. That's it from me on Reporting Scotland News at 7. We have an interview with Lee Miller, the former professional footballer who's the dad of Lennon Miller, who's just moved to Udinese.
Yeah, all the football tonight. Well, we're getting some sort of Italian weather here at the moment, it seems, Gillian.
We are. Do you know, it's been the warmest August day in Scotland since 2003, Laura, but all that heat triggering a few heavy and potentially thundery showers. That continues tonight, that risk of some thundery downpours. But the Borders was our hotspot today, just shy of 32 Celsius. But we had lots of 28s and 29s as well, right across the country. That heat was pretty widespread. The thundery showers haven't been widespread, but they have been heavy in places, and that risk is ongoing. So we still have a yellow warning from the Met Office covering most of Scotland through tonight and through tomorrow as well. Not all parts catching a shower, but you can see we have a cluster of them tracking northwards, followed by 1 or 2 showers, but plenty of clear spells tonight. And we'll see some hard drifting into eastern coasts as well as the northern Isles, some mist and low cloud affecting the Western Isles and some western coastal parts as well. And it is a very mild and muggy night, quite an uncomfortable one, I think. Tomorrow, some of that mistiness will stick around through the morning. We'll have showers pretty much from the word go in parts of the north and east. And like today, not all parts will catch a shower, but if you do, it could be very heavy, bringing a risk of flooding, a risk of large hail and gusty winds as well. By 2 p.m, most of the showers have cleared the Northern Isles. You can see they're mainly focused over the East Highlands, Aberdeenshire and Angus. It won't be as warm as it was today, but we could still see 26 Celsius in a few eastern spots. And like today, lots of dry weather, lots of sunshine for most of us, but some cloudier conditions hanging on for the Western Isles and some western coastal parts, so pegging temperatures here back a wee bit. Now, some of those showers lingering into tomorrow evening, and then they will clear away eastwards, and it's looking like a quieter start to Friday, but we will start out still with a cold front in play. So lots of cloud and some patchy rain affecting the northwest Highlands during the morning. Could be the odd shower elsewhere, but cloud tending to thin and break up as the day goes on. Some decent sunny spells, especially for central and southern Scotland, and that's where we'll have the highest temperatures because a bit of a northwesterly breeze picking up on Friday. And then we're set affair for the weekend. High pressure moving in, keeping us largely dry and settled. Some sunshine around, and it's warm again. That's the forecast.
It's always when the schools start to go back, isn't
it?
It is. Thanks, Gillian. Now tonight's main news again. And the US Vice President JD Vance has arrived in Ayrshire as part of his UK holiday. His motorcade has met him at Prestwick Airport, where Air Force 2 touched down in the last half hour. The former Scottish Parliament presiding officer Sir George Reid has died at the age of 86. Born in Clackmannanshire, he was a journalist, an SNP politician and also worked for the International Red Cross. And the Scottish Police Federation is considering legal action to remove the chair of the Sheku Bio inquiry, Lord Brackadale, after he refused to step down. And that is Reporting Scotland for now. The late news is at 10:30 tonight. And don't forget, the news at 7 is coming up shortly over on the BBC Scotland channel. In the meantime, from everyone here, enjoy your evening. Good night.